Hello, dear beloveds. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. And it's my very last duty before I take some time off for the Easter long weekend. And I'll just explain, if you're not in Australia, if you're not in the UK or Australia, you may not know that Easter is a really big deal. It's sort of, I guess it's sort of like the American Thanksgiving. I know they have completely different meanings, but what I mean is the amount of time that we take off and the amount of celebration and decoration and eating and all of that stuff that happens with Easter. I know when I've spoken to my American and Canadian friends, they're a little bit surprised and they're like, what is this? But in Australia and the UK, Easter is a big deal. And so we will have Good Friday as a public holiday, and then we'll have Easter Sunday, of course, which will be when we eat all the chocolate. And then Easter Monday is also a public holiday. And I think in some states they even have Easter Tuesday, but we don't get that in Victoria. So I wanted to connect in, even if you are not in a part of the world where Easter is sort of celebrated in a secular way, in the way that it is in Australia, you would be well aware that this time, the full moon always is when Easter is determined. So that's why the date of Easter changes every year. It's because, of course, as you probably well know, if you're hanging around here, that Easter is drawn from the pagan holiday and the celebration of spring, and really has very little to do with the Christian idea of this time of Jesus's crucifixion and resurrection. Whether or not we believe that there was, these are the literal dates around which Jesus was crucified and resurrected, it doesn't really matter. What I want to speak to today is not to the pagan side of things. As I say, Easter is determined by when the moon is full. If that doesn't scream pagan, nothing does. And it is absolutely drawn from the energy of the goddesses, the worship of the goddess Estra, and the idea of the rites of passage around spring and new life that comes with that new energy. But what I'm really excited to talk to you today is about reinterpreting or looking at the energy of this moment in Jesus's life from a non-Christian perspective. And what I mean by non-Christian is we are the world is in the Christian paradigm that came about hundreds of years after Jesus died. So Christianity has very little to do with the life of Jesus as we know it. And what Jesus's message has been co-opted by a religion that really has no right to have co-opted that. And so whenever I get that opportunity, I guess, to change your mind about what Jesus was or who he was and what he represents, and of course what things like the archetypal patterns or symbols of crucifixion and resurrection mean, I will do it and I will jump into it. And it's a very exciting time for me, because regardless of whether this was the historical moment when Jesus was actually crucified or not, we know that when the collective consciousness focuses its attention on anything, we get this kind of huge wave or rush of energy. And that's certainly something that I started to notice from this morning when I was at my yoga practice. As I was leaving, my yoga teacher mentioned the full moon, and it kind of, awoke me to the truth of, oh, it's that time of year again. And I could feel very deeply connected to the energy of the Christ conscience and the energy of this time of year. So I want you to sort of put down all the ideas. We can get very fixed or very fixated on ideas. What does this actually mean, and who has the right to claim it? And instead, let's zoom out and let's talk archetypally, and let's lean into, what does the image of the crucifixion and the image of the resurrection have for me right now? What can I tune into as the whole world is focused on this, or the Christian world is focused on these symbols? How can I access this energy positively, and not just have the next couple of days off if you're in Australia or a part of the world where we take holidays, and not just eat hot cross buns mindlessly and eat chocolate eggs mindlessly, but how can I actually tap into the incredible power of the energy that's available right now? And since I've been preparing for this live, the Christ conscience, that energy, the Christ consciousness is very, very much around me, and very much, may indeed choose to speak directly with you, because that energy of what we know as Jesus, as Lord Sananda, as the Christ is an energy that is the planetary guide, and that energy has been a personal guide of mine for a long time, and that energy is available to all of us because Jesus's life was meant to be that demonstration of bridging heaven and earth, that all this I have done, you shall do, and more, is exactly what Jesus, that the historical figure of Jesus, wanted us to take away from his lifetime, is that there ain't nothing special about what he did. And even though the stories that are shared about his life, we only have a limited access to them because of the way that Christianity co-opted Jesus's life, we can still get a pretty clear picture that what Jesus was representing for all of us was the capacity to recognize that we are far more unlimited than we know, and that we are able to bring that divine nature into present time, into the earthly realm at this very moment. But let's just connect in together now and really tune into the sacredness of this time and the sacredness of what Easter represents, both as a pagan ritual and celebration, and also as a celebration of the miracle of Jesus and the Christ conscience, and the energy that's available to us all at this time. So just take a moment, if you're safe to do so, closing down your eyes. If not, just fixing your gaze softly on a point in front of you, and allowing yourself to withdraw your attention from the superficial world, from the world of the dominant senses, and to go within to the world within the world, where we meet ourselves in our truth. We are all God. We are all the Son of God. This oneness is what this time represents. That symbol of the egg, that holy oneness that contains all of the cosmos within it. Taking a deep breath in, and you may choose to keep your eyes closed or open them. And as I suspected, it is not going to be me running the show, and our great brother is here and would like to speak with you and to speak with me and to share the meaning of this time for us all. So it's already starting, so I'm just going to get out of the way. And whilst I'm fully cognizant and fully conscious and fully aware of what's happening, it's my great privilege to hand over to our brother Jesus and to let him speak at this time. You know, the really funny thing is that I consider this time to be my birthday. And even though we spend so much time celebrating this idea of Christ Mass, in fact, I consider this time to be my birthday. And that great poet, that great teacher, Rumi, said, to die in life is to become life. And this is the image of this time. These words reflect what it is to be born and to die in life. And why would my Father ask me to suffer in such a way and to hang upon that cross and to be tortured in front of the ones that I love? What was being asked of me? What was that symbol? What was the representation of that moment that echoes through time and has not been forgotten even now, thousands of years later? What was happening there? So many things occurred in that moment. And did I suffer as the man? Yes. As Jesus Christ, the Christ consciousness? No. But as the man, indeed, the pain was real and terrible. And the doubt entered in. But beyond all of that, there was a deep meditative state, an altered state of consciousness that caused all those around me who were tuned into me to feel that same peace that was beneath the physical suffering and beneath the fear of loss and beneath the fear of failure. For I knew this was my victory, the beginning of my victory over the darkness. And the darkness being that belief in separation, that I could in any way be harmed by anything that occurred in this dream. For it simply cannot be so. And that was the beginning of my resurrection. And so it is with you, my brothers and sisters, that the darkest night for you is the rebirth, the beginning of the rebirth. You have seen it so many times before in your own lives. And if you are in a time of troubles now, then I invite you to see this as the beginning of the resurrection. But what are these symbols? What is it to be resurrected? You all know the story, or if you were raised in a Christian tradition, you know the story. And if not, you will hear it or find it quickly if it interests you. When the stone was rolled away and my body was gone, when I was no longer dead, when I was born again. Are these literal ideas? Well, yes, in the sense that my life, my body, the return to form was real, and it all occurred just as it has been told so many times. What happened in the days between the death and the rebirth, the return to form? And why did I return to that body at that time? To demonstrate that there is no limit to what our consciousness can do and how we can behave if we are willing to master ourselves, if we're willing to master our consciousness, not our physical forms, which is what we become so overly attached to and overly invested in and overly obsessed with, but to master consciousness as demonstration of our faith. When I was between death and life, I was with my Father. And we are always in that state. There is no death. There is only life. And anything that occurs in this earthly realm is but a figment of our imagination. And so, yes, to the outer eye, I was born again. And I do consider this my true birth, where I chose to open the inner eye and to see beyond the veil of illusion, of form. And this is the meaning of the resurrection, dear one, and that is why it is available to you right this moment, in this instant. The opening of the inner eye, of that deep connection that never went anywhere, despite the illusion of separation from God. We are all asleep in God's arms. And in the time in between, I made choices and reformed my intentions. And when I was ready, I could indeed animate what was seemingly dead and go on to live. But what do these images hold value to you? How do these images serve your consciousness? The crucifixion is as much the blessing as the resurrection. Whenever you are brought to your knees by the illusion of your life, please know that it is the beginning of the next level, the entry point, and that it is simply the shift in perception from I am vulnerable, I will be harmed, I can lose, I can fail, to the shift to the truth that I am eternal, I am God, I am infinite, I am never disconnected, and I have not left my home. That will allow you to resurrect yourself even in an instant. It is not long time suffering that earns God's love. It is not the crucifixion, that image that we've become so obsessed with in the world today, that suffering is how we earn God's love. These are the illusory ideas. God's only interest is in the resurrection, the correction of perception, the opening of the inner eye, the return to oneness. And I am not worried for you if you are in your dark night, my darling, or if you have one to come, or if you have endured many, if you have felt yourself crucified. I simply know that you're on an accelerated learning curve, as was I. I am not afraid for you. And I perceive your life with the compassion that I invite you to encourage within yourself, to see all of the events of your life with compassion, for they are all equally blessed by God, and they were all equally positive. It is but thinking that makes it otherwise. To resurrect oneself, or to feel the energy of the symbol of the resurrection, is to have faith in God, which is to have faith in oneness, which is to have faith in me as your brother. And when that idea of God feels too far away, let me be your companion, guiding you home. I am here. I am so here. I am here, invested in every breath. I have not gone anywhere, and I will not depart until every person on this planet, which is to say, the one consciousness of humanity, has accepted the resurrection, has accepted the atonement, that the separation from God never occurred. And I am your brother, and I am a symbol of what you are, not other to you, but as you. So please celebrate me as you celebrate yourself at this time, knowing that this is the opportunity to surrender through the image of the crucifixion all that is heavy and burdensome, all that you do not want to carry forward under this glorious full moon. Surrender it. Let it go. Let it be driven away. Let all that pain and suffering be gone simply by shifting your perception, and receive the image of the resurrection as your holy birthright, that you were only born to remember what you are, and that is as I am. And I honor you. And I honor you. And I would invite you to take some time with me over the next several days, for I am very, very available to all of you equally. My capacity knows no limits, just as yours knows no limits. And sit with me in meditation, sisters and brothers. Sit with me as though I am sitting in front of you or beside you, and together, like your favorite person, we sit and meditate and just be together in the gloriousness of our truth, which is that we are already everything that we are seeking. I look forward to spending time with you, and I honor you so deeply. I love you more than you can know. I'm just going to shut the door because my kid's watching Mary Poppins and my giant dog busted his way in. We are the mundane and the divine all at once. And if my life is not that truth, then nothing is. Thank you for sharing that with me and for making that possible, and that energy, that divine energy of our brother Jesus. You know, I want you to just know that doesn't matter what your faith is or what religion you were raised in or what you've been led to believe about the energy known as the Christ consciousness, that you are as entitled to a relationship with that guiding light as anybody, and to be unafraid of that connection, because I hope you could feel the love pouring out then, and I hope you could feel the sense of deep companionship that what this brother wants more than anything for us is to never feel alone. And that we are not alone when we tune into that energy. It's so readily available to us. And to hear his words directly about his experience on the cross, and it's just such a privilege to understand that we can be both the suffering human whose body is in pain, as well as the divine being who can see the bigger picture. And that is the paradox of ourselves, of being, you know, these incredible souls inside of a human body, is that we are paradox. We are all things at once, but we are awakening to the truth of our unlimited nature, and that nothing that is occurring or has occurred in your life has changed that or can change that. And so the resurrection, to repeat those words, is the opening of the inner eye. It's the opening of true sight. It's the beginning of true God sight, to see as God sees, which is not in the language of separation and duality and this and that, but as in the language of oneness, and that cosmic egg, that idea of the egg representing the infinite, unlimited consciousness that we are all in possession of. And I really truly hope you'll go into your Easter weekend now with a deepened sense of connection to the image of the cross on your hot cross bun, the image of the egg on your Easter Sunday, and to really let your brother be there with you, because that's exactly what he wants, is to be there in service to you, and to ensure that you do not feel that sense of separation and isolation. And I'm deeply grateful to my work as a student of the Course in Miracles for helping me understand these images, and for people such as Marianne Williamson, who've helped me to understand and deepen my connection to the image of the resurrection. You know, we are obsessed with the idea of the crucifixion in our world because we privilege suffering. We think suffering is the message that God wants us to get, that to suffer in God's name is holy, and that means we've done good and we earn extra credit with God. And that's so wrong. The crucifixion was the beginning of the resurrection. It doesn't have meaning in and of itself. The crucifixion is the beginning of the resurrection, and that resurrection is the return to joy, the return to innocence, the return to wonder, the return to true sight. It is a return to love. It is the overcoming of separation, which is the cause of all suffering. And so if we look at it that way, we separate, we start to detach from this idea that what God wants for us is to suffer, because what we revere, what we see in all our churches is the crucifixion. We don't have images of the resurrection. We have images of Jesus nailed on the cross, because we reward and we privilege suffering. And we say that if we're suffering, then we're doing God's work, or we're going to be rewarded by God in heaven, or, we're going to have a good afterlife, or we're going to have a good rebirth, or whatever it is. And it's all such baloney. It's the resurrection that was the message, and we've kind of missed the point. The resurrection was never the afterthought. The resurrection was the whole freaking point. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for letting me and Big JC hang out with you. And if you have any questions, please let me know, especially if you've been raised inside of religions where there are very strong ideas about Jesus. You may feel fear going towards this great and wonderful teacher, but Jesus is simply the greatest healer the world has ever known. And Jesus is now the guardian of our consciousness, of our planetary awakening, and is here to support all of us. And that archetypal energy is available to all of us, and do not doubt our capacity is equal to, if not greater than, what Jesus did in his lifetime, because we're now living in a much faster, much more awakened time. So the energy available to us is incredible, and that's why Jesus is clapping and cheering us on, because he knows, that energy knows, it's not a he or she now, it just is infinite consciousness. What is possible if we were simply to train our consciousness. And I think that was such a powerful takeaway for me, is how do we commit to training our consciousness and not being kind of haphazard with this. And it takes that deep spiritual fierceness and that deep devotion. Oh, my giant dog wants to go out again. What a surprise, because we're doing a live. I'm just gonna let him out. Oh, okay, I'm having so much fun hanging out with you. I just wanted to share with you that I am going into my first Easter hot cross bun and chocolate egg free, and I'm freaking proud of myself, because normally by this stage in the year I would have eaten 452 hot cross buns, but as I'm now a paleo vegan, that is not available to me. And I have got myself some panna chocolate. Don't worry, I will not be suffering on Easter Sunday, but I will not be partaking in refined sugar or flour or any other grains. So I won't be having those things. I'll just be meditating with Jesus, and I'm going to kick off my Easter weekend with a hot bath, and that's my very, very special treat that I'm going to go off and do now. But I really am so hopeful that you're going to all go out into this weekend now and be under that full moon energy, knowing that the Christ consciousness is with us all, and to really surrender the suffering story, to surrender the idea that to suffer is how we get God's credit, because that is what the story of the crucifixion, as told by Christianity, has wanted us to believe, is that indoctrination into the idea of suffering is what gets us where we want to go. That's not true. It's not true. Let's put that down. Let's go forward knowing that the whole point is how much joy, how much love, how much connection to God can we experience, and that's it. That's all we're here for. Okay, thank you. I'm just loving hanging out with you. It'd be fun if we could all be in a room together. We'll do that next time. And if you have any questions, please let me know, or comments. I haven't looked at them. My dog has cat-like qualities. Yes, my dog does think he's one of the cats. JC's been hanging out with Lausanne all morning. Yes, no surprises there, because that energy is so present, and you are such a beautiful energy conduit, my darling. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Okay, I think that's all now. I'm just hanging out for the sake of it, because I really am enjoying it. I'm going to go get in the bath. I'm going to go forward and relax and enjoy this time, and you do too. So much love to you. Bye.